as far as the caves themselves are concerned, there is evidence of human activity in the very deepest parts. The walls have been incised. Here and there is evidence of chiselling, and we have every hope that they extend, just as Salt wrote in his memoirs, for many hundreds of yards or metres. And recent evidence that we are now studying from satellite radar imagery would tend to suggest that the caves appear within this imagery that shows the plan of the plateau, and that the underlying geology seems to suggest, and can actually be seen on at least one image, to go all the way to the second pyramid, not the Great Pyramid, but the middle of the three main pyramids, the second pyramid, that was probably constructed initially as a tomb for the pharaoh Khafre, and that the chambers reached by Salt and Caviglia are, I believe, beneath the second pyramid. And this is actually really intriguing, certainly from the point of view of the Hall of Records of Edgar Cayces, because the early A.R.E. writers wrote that this was the tomb of Hermes. Now, he was the great wisdom bringer of ancient Egypt, as seen in Greco-Roman times. And it is said that his cave tomb exists beneath the plateau, somewhere in the vicinity of the second pyramid. Well, in 1977, a expedition from the Stanford Research Institute, in cooperation with the Ain Shams University of Cairo, did ground penetration radar research in the vicinity of the second pyramid, and detected the existence of deep chambers within this vicinity. And I believe it is possible that this is where Salt and Caviglia actually reached by going beneath the plateau from what we now refer to as the Tomb of the Birds, through which entrance to the caves is accessed. And it may well be that they came within reach of the cave tomb of Hermes. Now, what is said to be here? Well, the original so-called emerald tablet, which contains virtually the secrets of creation, and maybe even some ancient knowledge which pertains to a very early period of history, or prehistory in Egypt. And some even suggest that there aren't just one, but there are a large number of these emerald tablets, which brings us very near to the idea of the Hall of Records of Edgar Cayces, that they contain some kinds of tablets from some kind of high culture that existed in Egypt, perhaps even before the Pyramid Age.
You also write about a connection between the Cygnus alignment and the underworld cave system that you've found. Can you tell us about that?
Well, my interest in the cave underworld really got going in 2005 when an engineer friend of mine by the name of Rodney Hale decided that he would have a look at the key stars of Cygnus in relationship to the positioning of the three major pyramids on the plateau at Giza. Now, previous to this time, a similar type of alignment had been looked at by Robert Bouval in association with the stars of Orion. And Rodney Hale had never been happy with this alignment because, in all honesty, they don't fit quite accurately. So he studied the three main wing stars of Cygnus, wing from the fact that that Cygnus is a celestial bird universally around the world. It's also known as the Northern Cross. And what he discovered is that the three key stars of Cygnus fit almost perfectly with the ground positions of the three pyramids. However, if this was the case, it left one particular bright star in Cygnus unmarked on the ground, and this was the star Deneb. So I looked at this and wondered what might be in the vicinity. And although there was a so-called mastaba tomb that marked the spot, one that unfortunately nothing is really recorded about whatever might have been in there initially, somebody actually said to me, well, is it not possible that this could mark something underground, perhaps even the entrance to the Hall of Records? And at that time I thought this was an interesting idea, but I wasn't prepared to accept that because I was still at the time looking for possible entrances to the cave underworld around the Sphinx area, which is where most of the focus has been to do with finding the Hall of Records. And when I started investigating this tomb west of the Great Pyramid, in which the bird mummies or fragments of bird mummies had been found, suggesting some kind of local bird cult, and the main bird associated with the plateau to do with caves was a Sokar, the guardian of the underworld in various ancient Egyptian funerary texts. I wondered whether it was a cult of Sokar, and that people were leaving these mummies in honour of the god Sokar, suggesting perhaps that the tomb was seen as some kind of entrance into the underworld. This was also in my brain. So that was obviously the reason why I actually went there in January 2007. But of course it wasn't until March 2008, in fact, sorry, May 2008, that the memoirs of Henry Salt were actually published, that we began to realise that this was indeed perhaps a reality, that this was the entrance to Giza's fabled cave underworld. So of course when we went back there and found it to be the case, we realised that this was indeed part of a much greater network, which, as I said, is natural. And I think what's important here is to emphasise the fact that although there have been lots of rumours and stories regarding a cave underworld at Giza, this is the first evidence, the first hard evidence of a natural cave system existing. You know, we've produced literally hundreds of photographs which are now being revealed publicly, both within the books and within the lectures that I'm giving. And there can be no doubt now that this cave underworld has existed not just since the time of the pyramid builders, but perhaps for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. It was originally carved out by the actions of water and may well produce evidence of early human activity on the plateau that goes back long before the age of the pharaohs.
Your book, Beneath the Pyramids, tells all about your discovery. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about your book?
The book is ultimately a 30-year journey of discovery, really, because I was first introduced to the idea of the Hall of Records back in 1979, and it intrigued me at this time, and I first read about Edgar Cayces' readings to do with the same. Although it was really in 1985 that my own personal quest began as far as looking towards Egypt for real answers, through basically a dream experienced by a friend of mine who one night, totally out of the blue, found himself in Egypt by the Sphinx and disappearing beneath the bedrock into some kind of chamber, which he was able to describe afterwards. You know, my background is as a journalist and writer, but once I get a bee in my bonnet, as we say, you know, I follow it through until the end, and this is exactly what we have done to achieve what we have got today, and that is the rediscovery of Giza's cave underworld, and I'm very happy with the results.
Andrew, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you about your discovery. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you very much.
Beneath the Pyramids is published by Fourth Dimension Press, an imprint of A.R.E. Press, and available at arecatalog.com.